There's a lot of rage being displayed by many of my fellow cisgender white men.
Fuck Donald Trump! This is our country! This is our country! Fuck that fool! Fuck that fool! This is our country! We're gonna get up! Fuck Donald Trump! Fuck Donald Trump! Let's go, baby!
You see it on a daily basis on the internet. You saw it during this most recent U.S. presidential campaign.
Yes, I agree, Steve. We see it all over the internet.
And I suppose I could answer that rage with some of my own?
Well, I suppose you could, but I think these people got you covered.
We can't just do rallies. We have to fight back. There will be casualties on both sides. There will be, because people have to die to make a change in this world.
But when I really think about it, it's not so much that I'm mad at them. It's that I feel sorry for them. Here are 5 sad things about angry white men.
Yes, that's a given. Some of Trump's supporters were racists and bad people. Sam Harris, I'm going to have to borrow a few lines from Sam Harris here because he explains it a little bit better than I can.
I share the view that the election was generally a repudiation of the left, and of political correctness in particular, as much as it was just a vote for change. It was a repudiation of black and brown identity politics by white identity politics. And it's important to point out that this isn't the same as racism. Okay, I don't believe that a majority of the people who voted for Trump were motivated by racism. There are people who voted for Obama twice who voted for Trump. Racism cannot be the best way to explain that. And this is where the prevailing analysis on the left is wrong, of the sort that I just read from David Remnick in The New Yorker. Yes, we have just elected a man who was officially endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan. So you can be sure that every white racist in the country voted for Trump. But there are millions of other decent people who have reasonable concerns about a movement like Black Lives Matter. And most of these people probably voted for Trump too. These people are not racists. They were simply recoiling from charges of racism and from a toxic brand of identity politics. Much of what has been coming out of the left, not everything, but much of it, particularly about race and about law and order and about Islamophobia and terrorism, about issues that are fundamental to the security of our society, has had all the moral clarity and intellectual honesty of the O.J. verdict, which is to say none at all.
Number 1, they're ignorant. In the mid-18th century, the English poet Thomas Gray wrote, "Where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise." Gray was reflecting wistfully on the innocence of youth, but in a different context, he could easily have been describing the angry white men who formed the backbone of Donald Trump's base of support during this year's U.S. presidential election. It's not just what these men don't know that makes it sad. It's what they are happy to not know.
Now, I happen to agree with Steve on all of his points when it comes to specific subset of people. Chris Hedges, in his article, "Power Concedes Nothing Without a Demand," also agrees, and the link to that article will be below. But he also says here in the article, "The liberal class has busied itself with the toothless pursuits of inclusiveness, multiculturalism, identity politics, and tolerance," a word Martin Luther King never used, "and forgotten about justice. It naively sought to placate ideological and corporate forces bent on the destruction of the democratic state. The liberal class, like the misguided Democrats in the former Yugoslavia or the hapless aristocrats in the Weimar Republic, invited the wolf into the henhouse. The liberal class forgot that, as Karl Popper wrote in The Open Society and Its Enemies, quote, "If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed and tolerance with them." Part of what Chris Hedges is saying and part of what you're getting at is that there's a simple message that's scaring certain people, and we have to have our own version of that. I think you referenced that later in your comments. But what I've noticed is that the right-wing media, Fox News, Rush Limbaugh et al., have been drumming up this message for years. And you can tune in and see them portraying the left as being intolerant. You can see them showing the left in a very bad light over and over and over again. This is the message that a lot of the Trump supporters saw, and what they concluded was that we're tired of educated intellectuals telling us how to think and how to talk, which is what I and many on the left have laid right on the doorstep of the social justice warrior people.
They are extremely skeptical of science, except when they perceive it to reinforce their pre-existing biases. They care little to nothing about the experiences of people different than they are.
Yes, Steve, I agree. However, what they're being told is this.
This video is going to include discussions about racism, and because I am white, none of these thoughts about racism in this video are my original thoughts. I accredit to most of the ideas that I have picked up from these two videos created by two very lovely black YouTubers. So go and check them out, please, because they're lovely and awesome, and like, why not? All white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic, all members of a majority are biased against the members of the minority or oppressed group. In fact, most people are racist, misogynistic, transphobic, ableist, etc. I am racist, classist, ableist, and I probably contribute to many other systems of marginalization that I am not aware of. Words like racist, misogynistic, and transphobic are not insults, nor are they stereotypes or generalizations.
And it really helps to reinforce what they're being told by their media. I'm so sorry to keep interrupting. Go on with what you were saying.
Their knowledge of history is narrow, shallow, and warped by the narratives of conspiracy theorists. Having said all that, it almost goes without saying that, number two, they're easily led.
Oh, yes, I do agree. Although here's one leader from your side.
And I am the president of my school's feminism club. Yes, the feminism club. I imagine that there's a mixture of opinion in the audience. Some guys might be thinking that I'm a genius. I surround myself with girls on a daily basis. Other guys, though, might be thinking that I'm definitely gay as a result of this. Some people might be thinking, there's no way I'm a feminist because I'm not an angry woman.
Easily and often, right-wing politicians and pundits are constantly manipulating white male voters with narratives about liberals coming to take their guns, immigrants stealing their jobs, labor unions destroying industry, or welfare recipients bleeding their country dry. Year after year, the fears and prejudices of these men are used to persuade them to vote against not just the common interest of the country, but against the interests of themselves and their families.
Yes, and once again I have to repeat that because of the social justice warrior crowd, this, what I'm about to show, has now become mainstream.
And I will be, you know what? I will go to hell before I sit here and I watch this country and the world turned over to these savages. I'm done, I'm pissed, and I'm not putting up with it anymore. Let me tell you something, you filthy traitors in the government, you pieces of crap. You are the most degenerate, twisted, mentally ill people I've ever seen, wanting to gang rape this republic and this country and the West that has been the literal cornerstone, the absolute jewel in the crown of free Western Renaissance societies and the very best literature, music, technology, science, medicine, culture the world's ever seen. You Satanists want to sacrifice the West.
Oh, I'm sorry, you were saying?
And why? Why are they so easily led? Well, in addition to their aforementioned ignorance, there's also the fact that, number 3, they're insecure.
U of T. You're trying to drown us out. We're trying
Well, as you can see, the opponents of free speech are capable of making a long, inarticulate noise.
These people shame them. They shame them from their fear. They shame Peterson for trying to defend the rights that people fought and died for.
I've studied totalitarianism for 4 decades, and I know how it starts. It starts with restrictions on freedom of speech. Yeah. Don't need them.
And as we see these laws that are being passed, as we see this culture rising up, that tells people, not arguing, not debating, they're not telling people, oh, I disagree with you, here's why.
For generations, white men have been told that women's liberation, racial equality, LGBTQ equality, and multiculturalism are going to destroy their way of life. They've been told that their governments are too big. They've been told that the President of the United States is secretly a foreigner who collaborates with terrorists. They've been asked rhetorical questions like, why is there no White History Month? Or why is it that the only group of people not allowed to be proud of who they are white people? Or why is it that no one cares when men are abused? Or why don't they appreciate all that we've done for them? Despite belonging to perhaps the most privileged class of people that has ever lived.
You make some great points, Stephen, and once again I agree with a lot of them. However, when it comes to privilege, if you live in the United States or Canada or Western Europe or many places, you are amongst the most privileged people on the planet, no matter what your skin color is, what your sex, gender, identity, background, religion. You are lucky, all of us. So stop perpetuating the myth of the white male patriarchy in the part of the world that doesn't need a finger wagged at. There are parts of the world where it is a problem. You know that.
White men have been convinced that they are about to lose everything. And, number 4, they're afraid. Convinced that they are threatened from all sides by assorted political and social forces that are attacking their values, their masculinity, their place in history, many of my fellow cis-hetero white men aren't merely scared, they're terrified. They fear the progress made toward equality every day by Black Americans, Latinx Americans, LGBTQ...
Steve, LGBTQIA Americans.
Americans who follow religions other than Christianity, women, and pretty much any other group with which they can't personally identify. They fear the cultural changes that they perceive as they see the increasing popularity of films, TV shows, books, and music targeted at audiences other than them. They see all of these things and they fear them, and perhaps most of all, they fear number 5. They're being left behind.
It's really killing me to have to keep agreeing with you. But I'm not excusing these people that are fear being left behind, but there's a reason they fear it.
MRAs should be, if you shut the fuck up and let me read my list, there's the fucking proof.
And so I obviously can't like.
So, number one, shut the fuck up for a second. Feminists do not want you to lose custody of your children. The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy. Feminists do not like commercials in which bumbling dads mess up the laundry and competent wives have to bustle in and fix it. The assumption that women... We're working on it and you guys are trying to dismantle it. But if you'd fucking listen...
I don't believe they do.
Then
why are you part of the organization?
Saying that we're trying to take away their rights? How are we trying to take away their rights?
Why?
Can you shut the fuck up for a second?
Hi, media. Can I talk to you?
No, you need to get out.
Well,
you need to get out.
No, I don't.
You need to get out.
I actually don't.
All right. Hey, who wants to help me get this reporter out of here? I need some muscle over here.
You have to admit that's some pretty chilling scenes there.
And that is sad. It's not sad that their racism is being left behind, or their xenophobia, their religious intolerance, their homophobia, their transphobia, their misogyny, their petulant, self-centered, victim-playing worldview.
All white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic, all members of a majority are biased against the members of the minority or oppressed group. In fact, most people are racist, misogynistic, transphobic, ableist, etc.
What's sad is that they are being left behind because they would rather hold on to those things I just listed than try to change.
No, they just voted for Donald Trump as president for what they consider change. And please remember that about half the people in this country did not even vote.
And change is difficult. It takes effort. But it also takes effort to vainly resist every step forward that society makes. The deal is this, fellow white dudes, the future is coming. Just the same as it came for our parents and our grandparents. It's coming whether you like it or not.
And if you want to remain a member of the Ostrich Brigade, then you can see the change that is happening whether you like it or not because of redistricting, gerrymandering. The Republicans hold majority of most state houses, the White House, the Congress, and pretty soon the Supreme Court. I think it's time to get your own house in order here if we don't want more that happened November 8th to keep happening.
You can live in that future, or you can live in denial. The choice is yours. The hardest part is picking only 5. Catch you next time.
Hey Steve, well, in many ways we're on the same side. My fear is that the overreach of the regressive, or now known as the authoritarian left, is going to drive the people that voted for Trump into more victories in our country. It's not a pretty picture. It's not a future I look forward to. So I'm doing my part here to address it. Thank you for watching, and thank you for only coming up with 5 numbers, 5 reasons, or whatever it was. And no offense intended to you, Steve. I'm just trying to address issues that I think are important. Goodbye. Thank you everyone for watching my video. Please subscribe if you like. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Do you hear that? What the hell is that? Oh my god, is that... The patriarchy?